It's at this special time, it gives me great privilege to introduce the chair of our county Democratic Party. When I spoke to her this afternoon and said to her, tell me some wonderful things to say about you this evening, she just says, tell them what you know about me. And I said, you mean the hard-working, dedicated, mean, downright, dirty, politicking chairperson of our party? She said, that's about it. That's okay. Let me introduce right now the chairperson of the Somerset County, next to be in the forefront party of Somerset County, Ms. Peg Schaffer. Big round of applause. Thank you.
So I pride myself on mean. That is what makes it happen. It's nice to be in Bridgewater. It's nice to be in Bridgewater with such a great crowd of Democrats.
The script.
One person that the chairman thanks, Rick, by the way. I'm really not as mean as I try to be, but during this time of the year, that's my job, to make sure that everybody works as hard as they can, because we really are on the cusp. You guys have selected great candidates in this community, candidates that are going to govern amazingly. Every town in which candidates have taken over in this county is an example for how government ought to run. It's a responsive government. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Bridgewater, because you're going to get to hear from the candidates themselves. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the last Democratic freeholder ever to serve in this county, 3 decades ago, Mike Saponis. Mike, please stand up. And our state Democratic committeeman, Joel Shane, is also here. It is my distinct honor this evening, though, to introduce you to a young man, although I just learned he had a birthday this week, so maybe he's not so young anymore. He's a little bit older than I am, even. I first met the Congressman in 1996, when he came into our law office. Joel and I are law partners, and indicated that he wanted to run for the United States Congress. And we spent a lot of time talking to him and learned a couple of things about him. He's brilliant. He was then working at the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. And he's a really nice guy. And we said, oh my God, you can't go down there. Politics in Washington is a blood sport. It's gotten even bloodier over the last couple of years. We've all been watching that. And this then young man went down there and actually, for a while, was able to make a difference. He's a champion of the middle class. He fights for all the things we hold near and dear. He fights for education. He fights for seniors. He fights for health care. He fights for women. He fights. He's clearly pro-choice. He's on the left side, the right side, which is the left side, the left side. And he's also, we always have to remind everyone, he's a 5-time Jeopardy winner. Pretty amazing. Our candidate for Ledge 16, Marie Corfield, also was a Jeopardy finalist, actually, which is pretty cool. He also beat the machine. He was able to play Jeopardy against, what's the name of that guy? Watson, right, he beat Watson. Most importantly, Rush Holt is a man who once represented a very large part of this county. I know he'd like to stay where he is because it's safer. We'd really like to get him into some safe parts of Somerset County, because when we had a congressman who was a rocket scientist, who also was an amazingly caring, responsive legislator, we did a whole lot better down there than we do now. And it's my honor, pleasure to be able to introduce him to you and to call him my friend. Congressman.
Thanks, Peg. I indeed call Peg my friend, and she is a great chair. And she's a font of optimism, but more than that, she is an organizer, an organized organizer, and of course that's what we need. I'm really delighted to be here with you. I represent about 700,000 people in 44 towns across 5 counties. including this county. And it's a carefully drawn line that was carefully drawn about 10 years ago. There is a committee in the process of carefully drawing it again now. And who knows? I might get to spend a lot more time with you. And that would certainly be my pleasure. So I look forward to whatever may come, I guess I'll say. Well, it's good to be here with John, and also, Mike, you really do deserve to be singled out. You're someone to emulate, a winning Democrat. And, and of course, Jim, John, and Mary, who I'm here for tonight, because they can win. They must win. What we've got across this country mustn't last. The denial of the American dream is what we're seeing. I just made a little list here of, if I can get my iPhone to turn right side here. It thinks I'm over like this. Now it turns just as good. Anyway, let's see. I have a little list of what the House of Representatives has done this year. Now, this is under new management, I'm sorry to say. Of course, they read the Constitution. Actually, they skipped a few pages, which I thought was curious, but they made it a point to read the entire Constitution and then proceeded to trash it. Their first bill was to repeal the health care reform law, not because they saw a better way to provide health care for all Americans, but because it was passed under a different leadership. Then they passed a law to extend the Patriot Act to allow searches and seizures without what most of us would call due process and probable cause. They proceeded to pass a bill in the House. So far, all of this has taken place only in one of the houses of one branch of the government, to defund the National Public Radio, and then to defund Planned Parenthood. In fact, as Peg knows well, there have been multiple votes. I'll bet she doesn't know that it's been 10, count them, 10 votes attacking a woman's right to choose in just these past 9 months. A bill to repeal the non-existent ban on incandescent light bulbs. They made a straw man or a straw bulb and then proceeded to demolish a law that didn't exist, actually, that they found offensive. There have been a half dozen bills as recently as last Friday to attack the EPA's ability to regulate emissions. In other words, to allow polluters to foul our air and water. The Interior Appropriations Bill that the Democratic ranking member who has been working or serving in Congress for more than 40 years said this is the worst environmental bill that he's seen in his entire career, including ending such things as the Endangered Species Act. They have passed several bills that would allow drilling not only off of New Jersey, but anywhere with minimal safety and environmental procedures. They have had a series of budget bills. You've heard of the Ryan bill that would end Medicare. This is the record of the Republicans in Congress. Now, what was missing from that list that I gave you? Jobs. There was not a single bill in more than 250 days now, 280, almost 290 days, I guess. Not a single bill that could be called a jobs bill. So they are interested in ideology, not people. And so that's a theme that we see running from Washington to Trenton. And I guess I would say maybe even into this county. This country was based on some, there's an ingenious document. I carry a copy of the Constitution, not because I don't know what's in it, but I like to keep it close to my heart. It was an ingenious document based on some brilliant ideas. It was summarized best in what you memorized maybe back in middle school or high school, the Gettysburg Address, when Lincoln said better than anybody has said. It was a country conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal. Well, this principle of equality has some important corollaries that the other party seems to forget. It's not just that they celebrate an economic divide between the rich and the poor, because nobody is asking for absolute equality of income, but we are asking for, in fact, we should be demanding equality of rights, equality of opportunity, equality of protection of the law. I mentioned the Patriot Act earlier. Most people don't think of the Fourth Amendment, the protection against unreasonable search and seizure without probable cause, articulable, specific, as a corollary of the principle of equality. But it is. Think about it. What it says is not just that you're innocent until proven guilty. It is that no one in this country is more subject to suspicion than anyone else in this country, unless it is demonstrated otherwise. It is really a principle of equality that gives rise to these protections that we value so much. The idea that there is no citizen that is above any other citizen. And that's what you discover, each of you. I mean, Jim and John and Mary, John, when you go door to door, Wes, you learn, if you didn't already know, that every one of those people you meet is entitled to the same dignity as the freeholder or the assembly person or the senator that's sitting at the freeholder board or sitting in Trenton. Every single citizen should be treated equally. And when you're campaigning, it's important to remember that's all they're asking. Yes, I mean, I don't doubt that you know, when you're running this town next year, you will not have wasted money and lawsuits that are just wild goose chases, that you will have more efficient contracting, but ultimately that's not primarily what they're asking of you. The citizens here are asking to be treated as well as anybody else. To show the respect that you show when you knock on their door, and to make sure that their concerns, whether it's zoning or transportation, that their concerns are treated on a par with everybody else. So, I don't want to get too philosophical here, and I hope I'm not, because what I'm talking about is very practical. You know, when I ran for Congress, you know, Peg and Joel were really very hospitable, but they didn't give me a chance. They didn't really believe, maybe they did. There were very few people who really believed that a Democrat could win in the 12th Congressional District. There hadn't been one in anybody's memory. But I outworked the other guy. And I never forgot the lesson that what all of those people out there, those potential voters, were asking was that we uphold the American ideal of equality. Equality of opportunity, equality of protection under the law, equality of treatment by neighbors and council members and, yes, members of Congress. So, there's no secret to it. Up until last year, which I like to think of as maybe an electoral aberration, I carried my part of Hunterdon County. Now, who would have thought? When in my first 2 terms, I had a large part of Somerset County. I now have only part of Franklin Township. It was my ambition to carry Somerset County. And by golly, I was on the way. We were doing actually remarkably well. So take it from me. When people come up to you and whisper and say, I'm a Democrat and I live here in Somerset County. Each one thinks that he or she is the only one. In fact, there are thousands. And there are many thousands more that are just waiting for somebody to treat them with respect, to say that they are the equal of the person now sitting in the assembly or now sitting on the freeholder board. And they'll be on your side too. You've got to ask them. You've got to find them. You've got to ask them. They're there. And that's the winning formula. No secret to it, just a lot of hard work. And I know you're all up to it. And I don't mean just the candidates. I mean all of you. Because that's clearly what it takes. You're here to help them. Thank you for coming out tonight. Please bid. And by the way, if you want, if David, stand up for a second. Turn around. Yeah, okay. Good. I noticed there's still some blanks here on the page. This page is not filled with competing bids for 2, count them, 2 copies of your own My Congressman is a Rocket Scientist t-shirt. And the wonderful book, great for any age, but particularly good for first and second graders, called House Mouse, Senate Mouse. So I know you're here to help them raise money. But that's only part of it. Another part of it, perhaps the larger part of it, is to help them find those voters and get them out. Thanks.
Let's hear a great big round of applause for Congressman Holt. That's it, I see standing ovation there in the back. I would just like to say, because it enthralled me, I thought he was a cheerleader up here for us, as demure as he can be. I wrote down something that gave us very much encouragement, because he said this, and I quote, "I outworked the other guy." And that just leads me to believe one thing, that we can win this election, we can beat these other guys by just doing one thing, outworking the other guy, or other guys. And we have the team to do it.